Episode 1 of Hyperknife begins with two doctors heading to two respective surgeries. One of them is Yong Soo-ok, who conducts brain surgery in an operating room hidden behind a temple. She successfully removes a tumour from the brain of a heinous gangster named King Do-bong, while surrounded by his men. The other doctor is an older man by the name of Choi Deok-hee, who is conducting surgery in an official hospital room. Deok-hee wraps up his operation and then meets with a police sergeant who is investigating black market surgeries. The sergeant shows the doctors a video of a brain surgery and learns that this is a very difficult procedure, nearly impossible to do outside a hospital. After the sergeant leaves, the junior doctor asks Deok-hee if the hands in that video could belong to Soo-ok. Deok-hee calls a woman and asks her to find the illegal surgery broker who goes by the name Min. Back in Soo-ok's hidden makeshift hospital though, she wakes up and checks on the patient, who is actually doing pretty well. The nurse who took part in the surgery approaches Soo-ok and tells her she recognises her from her days at the Yongshin University Hospital. Young-ju, Soo-ok's junior doctor, tells her that the nurse was hired by the gangsters and is known for abusing elderly patients at a hospital. We then see the nurse put liquid into the patient's IV. When Soo-ok goes to change his dressing, she finds him unconscious. The nurse uses this opportunity to blackmail Soo-ok for money in exchange for not ratting her out. Soo-ok has a sly smile across her face but says that she agrees. Deok-hee and Mrs. Ra, the woman he spoke to on the phone, meet with the illegal surgery broker. He says the Chinese sent him that surgery video looking for the surgeon, but he only pretended to look because he generally stays away from brain surgeries. Deok-hee and Mrs. Ra then leave, and Deok-hee now seems to believe that the surgeon was definitely Soo-ok. That night, Deok-hee meets with Inspector Yom, an acquaintance from his hometown. Yom raves on and on about how Deok-hee was a genius in their town who got accepted into med school. Deok-hee then suddenly begins to feel unwell and rushes to the bathroom to take medicine. As Kim Do-bong's people start discarding all the evidence of the surgery, he thanks Soo-ok and offers his help if she ever needs it. They soon leave the premises with Dr. Han, one of Soo-ok's colleagues, going to look after Kim for a few days. Soo-ok, Young-ju, their anesthesiologist, and the nurse are the last ones left behind. Soo-ok tells Young-ju to deliver an icebox to Dr. Han since he forgot it. She warns him not to look inside and then tells the anesthesiologist to go get some rest as well. On the way though, Young-ju can't help the temptation and opens the icebox all the same. Inside are just a few packets of crisps, and thus he turns the car around. Inside the premises, the nurse drinks water from Soo-ok's bottle and ends up passing out. She wakes up on the floor and can't find her bag. She searches for it and finds it in the operating area where Soo-ok attacks her, pulling a wire around her throat. Young-ju returns to the place and finds Soo-ok, who casually asks him where the shovel is. Mrs. Ra then brings Deok-hee photos of Soo-ok playing with her Rottweilers. It makes Deok-hee smile when Ra comments on how he and Soo-ok are quite similar. He considers going to see her, but Soo-ok is back at her pharmacy now in a small town named Paju. When she leaves her workplace, she sees a man with an ankle monitor staring at her from across the road. At home, she tells Young-ju about this. She suddenly receives a call from Deok-hee, who tells her he's coming to see her. The call shakes her up, and in a flashback we see exactly why. Here we see that Deok-hee got Soo-ok kicked out of her OR. In her anger, she tried to strangle him, but the other doctors managed to get her off. Deok-hee slaps her and tells her she won't work in an OR anywhere ever again. She kneels in the rain, begging for forgiveness, but he doesn't grant it. By contrast, in the present, Deok-hee arrives at Soo-ok's place. After one small talk, he shows her the brain surgery video and says that she's improved a lot. He admits that he's sick, as he has a brainstem glioma. He wants her to operate on him, and when she angrily asks why she would do that for him, he responds that the police are actually out looking for her. As he leaves the house, he gets another attack of pain. He tries to bring out a vial of medicine, but Soo-ok is there first and stomps on it, breaking it all while laughing hysterically as episode 1 comes to an end. Episode 2 of Hyperknife begins with Soo-ok smashing Deok-hee's vial of medicine and laughing hysterically. Young-ju hears the chaos and calls the paramedics to come and help Deok-hee, who has now collapsed. From a distance, the man with the ankle monitor watches Soo-ok's house. A flashback then shows that Soo-ok, during the days of her residency, she solves a neuro quiz stuck on the notice board and then gets excited when she sees a notice about welcoming Dr. Choi Deok-hee back to the hospital. We see here that Deok-hee is with another doctor named Dr. Song, who informs him about Yong Soo-ok. He calls Soo-ok a loose cannon and says something is wrong with her. Soo-ok turns up at Deok-hee's office and shows him that week's neuro quiz. She says she's been waiting for Deok-hee since before she graduated and has even memorized some of his research papers. He returns the quiz paper to her with the word perfect written across it. She later runs out in the rain and begs Deok-hee to take her on as a student. Back in the present, Deok-hee tells Mrs. Ra that Soo-ok was in love with brain surgery and even wanted to die in the OR. He says he was a lot like that when he was her age, but he should have recognized that she has no self-control. Deok-hee then meets with Dr. Han Hyun-ho, Soo-ok's colleague, and presents his illness. Han takes it to Soo-ok and encourages her to do the surgery since Deok-hee has offered to help reinstate her medical license. Soo-ok says it won't be of any use since she won't be allowed to operate in hospitals anyway, and that night she angrily burns all the papers from her residency days, a lot of which include Deok-hee's perfect written across them. The next day, that man with the ankle monitor turns up at Soo-ok's pharmacy. He reveals that he was watching her the previous night and then asks her to have a drink with him. After he leaves, Soo-ok and her co-worker at the pharmacy see the man beating up his older sister who owns a local diner. They both go to this diner as customers in order to get him to stop. While eating there, Hyun-ho calls Soo-ok and asks if she can operate on a new patient that night. She agrees immediately. She tries to get in touch with Young-ju, but he doesn't pick up as he's been looking at a picture of Soo-ok, Deok-hee and another woman which he found in the paper Soo-ok burnt that previous night. He meets the woman in the picture and she tells him that that picture was taken on the day Soo-ok took the lead on a surgery for the very first time. She says Soo-ok was a genius but also somewhat of a fool too. Another flashback here shows Soo-ok getting furious when she realizes Deok-hee hasn't chosen her for a research program in Boston. Another resident named Ha Yu-yong is going instead. She storms into Deok-hee's office and makes a huge fuss, irrespective of the fact that Yu-yong's mother is sitting with Deok-hee. Deok-hee gets angry at Soo-ok's behaviour and winds up slapping her. He then bans her from all the surgeries, and a year later a department head allows Soo-ok to perform surgery while Deok-hee is out of town. When Deok-hee returns, he has Soo-ok forcibly thrown out of the OR. Back in the present, Soo-ok's new patient never turns up. As she and Hyun-ho are leaving, she spots Deok-hee sitting in a car nearby and realises he must have something to do with it. He tells her he's got her a spot at Boston University where she can perform all the surgeries she wants. In exchange, she needs to perform the surgery on him. Soo-ok refuses again, but Deok-hee is convinced he's going to make it happen. Mrs. Ra, who is driving Deok-hee, warns him to be careful. Young-ju and Soo-ok then go to the local diner and see the man with the ankle monitor staring at her. Elsewhere, Deok-hee speaks to a man named Alan who is living in the US. He tells Alan that he is down to his last vial of medicine, and Alan says he'll come down when he can. That night, Soo-ok spots the ankle monitor guy watching her house. She goes out and realises he's been doing this for quite a while. Two local men walk by and strike up a conversation with her, and they reveal that the local diner is being sold because of ankle monitor guy's demands for money from his sister. Soo-ok is furious at losing her regular eatery and plans to kill the man, but Young-ju dissuades her. We then see Soo-ok go to the diner for a meal. She notices that the man isn't wearing the ankle monitor anymore, and he starts talking to her. She agrees to have a drink with him the next day, and the next morning Soo-ok crushes a few pills and puts them into a drink. Yep, we can guess where this one's going. Naturally, she then drives by the man, who's on his bicycle, and offers him a lift. He has a drink she offers him and they go back to her place where he soon passes out. When he wakes up, he finds himself tied up in the middle of Soo-ok's plastic covered living room. She smiles at him, telling the guy that it's okay, and then slashes his throat with a knife. While Soo-ok drives the body into the woods, she calls Young-ju and asks him to go home and clean up. Young-ju then subsequently runs home and burns all the man's belongings. An ID card shows his name is Kwon Sing-kyu. Young-ju then cleans the stains on the floor, and unluckily for him, a policeman notices a fire in the front yard and comes towards the house. In the woods, Soo-ok realises someone is nearby. She leaps out toward the person, ready to attack, but finds that it's none other than Deok-hee, which is where episode 2 of Hyperknife comes to an end. So after the intriguing opening episode, episode 2 then continues the dark and thrilling story right where we left off. This one takes a little more time to dive into the backstory of the relationship between Soo-ok and Deok-hee. We learn that Soo-ok always admired Deok-hee and his work, and the show does well to highlight her obsession with him. It's also quite intriguing that Deok-hee himself isn't exactly made of a noble breed. He has no issues going to Dr. Han's office and insulting the way he works, for example, and we obviously see that there's no love lost between himself and Soo-ok. given what takes place in the past with the OR. By showing us both characters' flaws, the series is certainly amping up the tension while also balancing the scales between them. We then get a glimpse of what went wrong in their relationship, and here is where things feel a tad off. Is Suok's outburst in Deokhee's office really enough for him to ban her from surgeries altogether? Surely there has to be more to it than that, right? And given the fact that this show is peppering in a ton of flashbacks, it seems only logical that we're going to get more of that in the episodes ahead. Speaking of which, this show has some gorgeous cinematography too. Some of the shots, like when Suok is sitting outside begging Deokhee to let her continue surgery, the framing of the camera is so beautifully done. Similarly, in episode 2, we get that lovely shot of the camera zooming in on Suok's face while the fire is burning in her eyeballs. But furthermore, the episode also gives Suok's murderous tendencies more screen time, and it's likely that this means that this side of her is part of the main plot and not just an element on the side. Hopefully the show doesn't compromise on the medical thriller aspect of the series and falls into more of a slasher territory. For now though, the push and pull between Suok and Deokhee and all the resentments in between makes for a highly compelling hook, and it also sets the bar very highly for next week's double bill. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.